get started. So I am Deputy Moderator Margaret Horton. Our fearless moderator, Marcy Spolier, is enjoying some very well-deserved time away. And so you're muddling through with me this evening. So first we'll go ahead and start with the pledge. All right, thank you. The first item that we're looking at tonight is the presentation about, age-friendly Fairfield. And so we have Julie DeMarco, John Wynn, and I apologize that I don't know.
Brenda Steele, Director of the Bigelow Center.
So thank you very much for indulging us. We'll just take a couple minutes of your time. I'm Julie DeMarco, the Human Services Director, and with Brenda Steele, the Bigelow Center Director, and John Wynn and Herb Limecooler from Fairfield Senior Advocates, we started out on this adventure of age-friendly Fairfield. That's a 3 to 5 year project. We're in the second year of it. And John is going to go through what the actual work is and what we're hoping to achieve from it. But the very dabbling light part of it is that we take a look at all sections of Fairfield, from transportation to housing to social engagement, which Brenda is working on, to communication to facilities, and look at it with an eye towards people living in Fairfield and staying in Fairfield. It's not a senior citizen thing. It's something about all residents, whether 45-year-olds, kids, grandkids, disabilities, abilities. However you stay in Fairfield, how we can take a look at it to make you want to stay and what the town can do better. So I'm going to pass it over to John Wynn now so he can tell you a lot more about it.
Sure, thanks. Hopefully you can hear me. We have a set of slides. Hopefully we can get through it in about 10 to 15 minutes and allow time for Q&A. I'll go through it quickly. If I'm speaking too fast, just give me a signal to slow down a little bit. We can stop for questions during the course of it. What we're going to go through is an introduction to what age-friendly initiatives are all about, where they come from, what it means. And then we're going to give you a little bit more detail on Fairfield's age-friendly initiative, a little bit about the launch and the initial planning, the approach, and the work that we've done to date, how we're leveraging community partners, and then allow just a quick summary and then Q&A. When Julie mentions the age-friendly Fairfield initiative team, she's talking about more than myself or herself or Brenda. We have a number of members of the community that participate. Some are sitting on current town boards, such as the Human Services Commission, Affordable Housing Commission. RTM members have participated. So we have a good, rich background of people from the community participating, and those individuals supplement a number of other just regular people that participate because of their interest in this. Some of those people may have served on other town boards and commissions at various points in time in the past. Just a little bit of background. This work came about as a result of some strategic planning work that was done a number of years ago, and it was identified by Julie. Julie recognized the work that AARP and the World Health Organization were doing about making communities more livable and how to help towns and communities plan for it. This work leverages the WHO and the AARP material. Generally, it approaches things in 8 domains as illustrated on this flower chart on the right-hand side of this page. I won't go through each one of them right now, but they deal with housing, transportation, buildings, social participation, and a variety of other that are described around this chart. I'll give you a little bit of background on what that actually means in a few minutes. But basically, it ties to the mantra of the safe, attractive, and affordable communities, which are key design points. Our focus is not just age-friendly. We have a multi-generational focus because we recognize that people are moving back to Fairfield to be around their children and their grandchildren, or because of the richness and variety of situations that the town offers. So we're trying to make it something that's not just solely age-friendly, as AARP approaches sometimes do, but also multi-generational. There are many communities that are focused on this. This chart illustrates some of them and provides a listing of several of them. These communities, I would say, are more age-friendly advanced than we are, and I'll point out why that's important in a few minutes. But Greenwich started the program about 5 years ago and recently achieved their recognition as an age-friendly community. Groton has been working on it, Glastonbury, Newtown, Simsbury. Massachusetts has 100 communities and a state membership around the age-friendly initiative. We studied these communities and what they've done and what they've learned and what they've accomplished, and we focused on them because their similarity to where we are in New England, and they were dealing with all the challenges from living in New England, from a taxation, from a climate standpoint. So we thought it was a good set of communities to look at when we were doing our work. The focus is to achieve benefits across each of those different domains. What needs to be done really depends on the community status and where their needs might be. And every community is a little bit different. Some are more advanced in what they're doing in some of the domains, and others are less advanced. We have a good, healthy balance of work going on across a number of domains, but that does not mean that further work wouldn't be beneficial and desirable. This chart is obviously too busy to try and read, but just the vertical line is the list of domains, and the narrative in the page, which you can read at some point at your leisure, provides some details what each one of those domains, is trying to achieve, what's the area of focus, what are the issues that might come up with. The key point is that each one of these domains will be evaluated to determine what we might want to tackle, and I'll describe some of the things that we're already doing in some of them. You'll just notice this table has 7 domains versus 8 from the flower chart. That's because sometimes people will combine domains together because of similar issues or challenges in that area. This next chart really illustrates the planning process that they advocate for you to follow. And it's no different than any of life's journeys. If you're planning a trip, or you're planning a wedding, or you're planning a project, where are you at your starting point? Where do you want to try and get to at the end? And then what do you need to do between the starting point and the ending point to make that come to life? That's basically what we're doing. So we're in year 1, moving into year 2 of this, which this chart will illustrate. It also shows that there is a multi-year path to follow subsequent to where we are right now. So we're taking that standard approach that I showed on the prior chart, and we've customized it based upon the analysis that we've done. It's not going to happen overnight. As I mentioned, it's a multi-year program. We are using regimented approach to gather facts and evaluate issues. It includes quantitative data analysis, a survey that I'll give you some detail on, listening sessions, and then afterwards, once it's planned, then implementation would then need to happen. Any progress that's made is beneficial. There's some progress that we might make in the very beginning just by asking the right questions and starting to analyze it, but follow-on work would certainly be needed. The research that we've done so far indicates there's a whole broad multitude of resources to leverage, and our challenge at going at this, it's not a solitary one. Others have done it. There are tools available, there are approaches available, and we've already leveraged a number of them. There's a lot of thought leadership, and there are very specific and identified benefits that have a great impact on the communities that have gone through this process. We have the supplemental benefit of being able to leverage some key community partners, like both universities. We've already very much deepened our approach to working with Fairfield University and their support of the survey work that we did. One of the URTM members is a former member of the team that we're actually working with right now. And access to the professors there, the students, the thought leadership is a fabulous community partner to leverage. So let's talk about our specific accomplishments, age-friendly Fairfield. We're on page 10 in the slides, and I neglected to say up front, if you're following remotely, this material is in the 923 package materials for the meeting. It's not in tonight's package, it's in the one for 923. So the project started with some initial planning and a survey that was done last summer. The survey was 42 questions across each one of the 8 domains, plus some supplemental demographic information. We achieved about almost 1,000 responses to the survey, so we had a good, rich, quantitatively rich response to it that allows us to do certain types of analysis and cluster analysis and multi-factor analysis. So it wasn't just, oh, I got the responses from 6 people. We had 1,000 people that responded to this survey. Julie and Brenda and members of Fairfield Senior Advocates have participated in this whole process. As I mentioned, there's members from the Human Services Commission, member of the RTM, the Affordable Housing Commission, and others. Following the survey work, we had a number of listening sessions and expert sessions to gather further information. So that meant we went out to a number of locations where we interacted with clusters of residents, 2 of which were like 2 senior centers. We went and conducted an actual listening session with them. We also brought in experts like from Greater Bridgeport Transit, Connecticut Rides, a few others where we actually brought them into a working session with the age-friendly team that we mentioned is working on this. Am I going too fast? Are we doing okay? Okay, I'm getting nods, so we're doing good here. The domains that we've done work on so far, transportation, we've done a significant amount of work. As I mentioned, we had some expert sessions. We took the survey results. Interesting survey result is that 90+% of the respondents to the survey still self-drive. There's not a wide use of public transportation in the age demographic that responded to the survey. I would say that's not terribly surprising, but we need to think about that as we kind of plan how the community evolves and what services are offered in the community. We're doing work on social engagement and social participation. We've done a lot of good work in that area. We've done work in housing domain. We've also done work with, and that's being led up by Herb Limecooler, who is leading that domain team, and he's also the chair of the Affordable Housing Commission. So he has a well-developed knowledge of the housing market here in Fairfield. Let's see. The follow-on domains that we're anticipating work on, the health domain we recognize is a very important domain, so we're gonna start to plan out what we're doing for that. Information and communication is a topic that cuts across basically every domain, so we recognize there's a need to do work in that area. So what our plan for those areas are to look at the other towns and communities, figure out what they've done, what challenges they faced, what they were able to accomplish, and try and figure out where we are by studying our health domain areas to know what are the challenges on that health domain topic, and then figure out what type of steps we need to do to plan for age-friendly initiatives on that topic. I mentioned this point previously, the community partners. We're going to continue to grow and evolve and expand this list of people. Actually, I'm off by a slide or 2. Okay. Yep, good. You'll see on this chart, I've listed out a handful of the community partners, and I'll list them off quickly now. The town departments, town commissions, and the town administration are all we view as partners that we need to work with in this. Fairfield University and Sacred Heart University, Greater Bridgeport Transit, Fairfield Senior Advocates, faith-based communities. We're beginning to engage with a number of the different faith-based communities here in town. Community service organizations such as the Rotary, Kiwanis, and possibly the health networks like Hartford Healthcare and Yale New Haven Healthcare that are all putting down big footprints and big investments here in the community around the area of health. Kind of getting to the end of the slides, but just in the past 3 weeks or so, we came across this topic of AARP Livability Index for Fairfield. And I have this illustrated on the chart, and I'll just quickly try and go through some of the details. The categories that this livability index for Fairfield is very closely aligned, but not exact alignment to the domains in the age-friendly initiative. But they cover housing, neighborhood, transportation. They get into some environmental issues about the health and safety and water quality, things like that. Health certainly is in line, community engagement, and then another opportunity in general area. But basically, communities across the country that have done this, and they've done hundreds of communities, the AARP has looked at hundreds of communities, come out at a score of 47. We could come out at a score of 50. So we're at the starting point better than many of the other towns that have been evaluated for this livability index. What we're hopeful is that the work for the age-friendly initiative might help identify steps that we might use to communicate to the livability index team at AARP, hey, we have a program on whatever topics. How would that help adjust our score? The reason for that is it's a very good marketing capability to be able to say that using the AARP approach, we score better at the outset, and we have actually, through work that we're doing in the community, improve the score that we have for this. It's a very good way to try and market and communicate the beneficial attributes of the town. We thought it would be interesting to look at, on the right-hand side of this chart, a handful of more advanced age-friendly communities like Greenwich, Glastonbury, Newtown, all of which have more mature age-friendly programs in place. They've been doing it for a number of years. They score slightly higher than we score. Several in Massachusetts are both much more advanced age-friendly communities. They've scored higher as well. So our surmise is that age-friendly initiatives and programs and activities will help beneficially influence Fairfield's score. It won't happen overnight. There probably would have to be some discussion with the AARP team about what they look at and how they look at it. But we're optimistic that we can have that type of beneficial impact with the work that we're doing. Further study is certainly needed on that. And this will be my last slide, and then I'll open it up to questions. Quick summary, we're well underway. We're leveraging the key learnings and the approaches from AARP. Our current approaches can be modified and adjusted as new information comes to light. The opportunity to deepen and leverage the involvement from community partners and community members and maybe further members of the RTM in this effort is all welcome and beneficial. The final takeaway is in the blue shaded bar at the bottom of this chart. Significant progress has been made, yet much work remains to be done on this topic. So basically, our ask is for you to be aware of this initiative if you hear about it or if you hear your constituents asking about it, to be a little bit familiar with it, to be supportive of it, because there's, in our mind, only beneficial impact to the community. We welcome insight and experience and interests from all of the RTM members. So however you'd like to be involved, we'd love to have you involved. And Julie's the focal point for that. And we can respond to questions. Julie, anything that you want to cover that I didn't?
Just one thing, the livability index, I know 50 does not look like we're acing it, but now that you know that there are livability scores in different towns and communities, you know, if you think, oh, it might be interesting to live in Arizona, you can go and look. I'm not saying move. I'm just saying you could always go and look and see how we compare to other areas of the country. It's a great measure of how we're doing in terms of keeping people here. And anybody who's interested in helping, we would love to have you. Thanks.
And just one last point, I didn't want to overlook it. On the right-hand side of this chart, we've illustrated a number of the key community partners that are participating and supporting and involved in this initiative. We'd love to have more up there, and that's one of our challenges to kind of get more involved. But the ones on this chart really have been, you know, really lifting a lot of heavy work and doing a lot of work to move this initiative forward. So I'm happy to take questions. I don't know how much time you have.
Okay, thank you. I had actually one quick question. First, you mentioned at the beginning that you were comparing to other towns that have more mature programs, and I was curious, is there some entity that confers like the status of age-friendly community?
Yes, the age-friendly designation is awarded by AARP. We committed and launched the program, and they award you age-friendly designation. Then you go through the process that we illustrated on the chart, which has been created by AARP, and then you go back to them and you submit your results back to them. Here's our program, here's what we did, here's what we found out, here's our work items in each one of these different domains. And they say, basically, they either ask, we haven't gone through the process, so I can't tell you exactly how they, interrogate the process, let's say, but they probably ask some questions, might give you some suggestions and guidance. I think they want everyone to be successful, so I imagine that they're going to be, positively inclined to, as long as you show diligence in executing the process.
Just want to add that once the plan has been submitted, you have to be approved every 5 years. So the cycle starts all over again, which is really a great thing, just to kind of see, how you've done and what you can do better and how well, we're doing.
Great, thank you. Representative Steele.
Hi, Jeff Steele, District 3. Thank you for a great presentation. I am definitely a supporter of the initiative. I think it's important for our seniors, obviously a big part of our community. I like the index as something to strive for, improving all the time and comparing and being something to promote the livability of Fairfield. I only have one question. I like everything you presented. I was curious about, is there any cost entailed with current efforts and future initiatives? And if there is a cost entailed, where would that cost come from, if there is one?
It's a great question. There is no cost right now. We've done, sometimes we print up things, when we have our meetings, but it is not something that's supposed to require funding. If there are initiatives that come up out of this, these action plans are things like, making sure that there's programs for everybody, say at the senior center, at the library, and those are already covered in the budget. So we're not adding costs to anything, so I appreciate you asking that. The other thing is Fairfield is doing really well with things. Like we have to go through what we're already doing, and some communities aren't as lucky as we are with, with like Parks and Rec Master Plan or the Conservation Commission Plan, or, all of these big studies we've done take away the work that we have to do going forward. We already have our complete streets. We have, all of these the community and economic development plan, all of those are in place. So we can just tap into those and say, we're already ahead. We can do all of this. So it takes away a lot of the cost in doing those studies or those big master plans, because we've already done them.
Thank you.
Representative Carson.
Laura Carson, District 4. Thank you so much. This really is great. Thank you. I just have a question. I'm a little concerned about our drinking water quality. Our environment's bad. And why is that so low compared to, I wouldn't expect that here in Fairfield. And how can we fix that kind of soon?
Are you looking at the livability detailed report?
Yes.
I think that is
34, towards the end, the bottom. It goes through all the numbers.
okay. So this livability report and rating only came to light about 2 or 3 weeks ago. So we haven't really dived into what these different things mean. I do know that the environmental component of that does get into water quality, health quality. I don't know why we're rated the way we are, because we haven't explored it. But what I would like to say is, if we examine what they used, they may not be aware of a lot of the efforts that we have here being part of the state, which is reasonably highly regulated from a deep standpoint, and other programs and initiatives we have through the town boards and commissions we have, like the Harbor Management Commission, the Shellfish Commission, all of which are focused on these environmental issues. If we take all of the work the town does across boards, commissions, and work that's going on at the state level and bring that to the AARP and say, hey, are you aware of these things that are going on? And would that raise the score if we have these initiatives going on? So that's what our hope is. Can't promise that that will come out that way, but.
Thanks, Representative Rock.
14. Dave Rock, District 2, through you, Madam Moderator. So I did just a quick look and found comparable towns on AARP with their index scores. And it looks like, I mean, the highest is really a 68 for Portland, Maine, with a population of 66,000, which is close to us. So we're at 50. The best score in our category, according to AARP, is a 68. And then there's a list of all of these towns sort of going down from the 68 to, the top 25. 25 is Salt Lake City, Utah, at a 63 with a population of 25,000. Anyway, my question is, do you know where our 50 goes to? So we have a 50, we wash through, age-friendly, we resubmit back in. Do you know where we would land approximately, maybe? And then my second follow-up question before we get there, and this might be easier. Do you know if any of these towns that are now in the top, our competition, do you know if they've gone through age and what their previous score was to where their score is now?
We're curious about that too. We don't, to tell you the truth, I don't know the answer to that. We assume that, the scoring hasn't been around that long, the livability index. It's 2015. So when we look at that, we hope our score goes up. We have a lot going for us, and we haven't been looked at in the way AARP looks at these communities when they're doing the livability index. So as we do our report and do the follow-ups each year, I can't really predict what that would look like. I can tell you that we hope that we get up there. I think Portland, Maine is lovely, but I think Fairfield is his home, and I could see us being there as well. It's on us to try to figure out what they're doing that we're not doing, because it's a coastal community. They have a lot of similar issues and concerns and gifts that we have. That's on us to learn about.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm fully behind it. I'm more interested in the methodology, and I applaud what we're trying to do here. We've got a great town, and I was just trying to gauge us against the other numbers and see what it would look like. Thank you.
I would bet a key thing that might drive that is distance from major urban centers and the potential for the impact of affordability, crime, health, environmental quality issues. The further you get away from urban centers, you might get a benefit from that. Then you lose a lot in the way of other types of beneficial things being in proximity to urban centers like we have for being a proximity to New York City and other places in the area. So more needs to be done to try and peel away the onion on this and understand it further and do a kind of a detailed analysis. Yours off the cuff is a very thoughtful way and to probe and ask questions about it. We haven't wrestled with this long enough to really have those answers at this point.
Thank you.
Representative Kuhn.
These are great questions. I really am very, very pleased that everyone's so interested in this.
Well, here's to end the great questions. John Kuhn, District 7. First off, we're never going to catch Portland, Maine because they have such great restaurants. But I'm curious, when you have like 5 or 6 Connecticut comps, is there an exhaustive list of, I guess it would be the medium-sized, mid-sized towns in West Hartford, or in Connecticut, and how they rank? I'm curious in particular about West Hartford. I kind of think of that as a direct comp.
West Hartford, from my experience, is one of the most typically compared to communities as Fairfield. Population size, demographics, income rates, affordability, a variety of different things. We focused on the couple of Connecticut communities that were in the chart, chart 13 in the deck, because we knew of them as age-friendly. We've interviewed the age-friendly team for each one of those communities multiple times during the course of our research and fact gathering and whatnot. That's the only reason why they're on the chart. We didn't try and do a straight comparison of Fairfield to any other town that fits within, however you would, try and analyze Fairfield.
It was a little bit of a random selection.
Well, not random. They're age-friendly towns. They've applied for and achieved age-friendly designation. That's the reason why they're on the chart. That's why we focused on that.
Got it. Thank you.
Just one more thing to add. We're the 8th town in Connecticut to get this designation. So we haven't looked at all the designations of, all the livability of every town, but of the 8, those are the ones that we really compared.
Representative Zezima.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Liz Esmond, District 4. I was really excited to see this, and I'm obviously biased, as I think the senior here. I do plan to stay in Fairfield, so, this is incredibly important, and I can see more seniors wanting to do that. Connecticut is already really fortunate to have extremely high quality of life metrics, which, not every state does. Including healthcare. But one thing, John, I was wondering, I did what Chris did. I went and peeked at the AARP site, and I noticed that we actually have a distinction between our 2 zip codes. So 06825 was, I think, a 52, and 06824 was 49. I assume that's largely housing affordability, cost of housing.
I'm actually not sure if it's that. Could be a variety of there could be different crime statistics for those areas. There could be different, any of the metrics that they use to evaluate. So I just don't know the difference between zip code for the different ratings.
And my biggest takeaway was housing is a huge issue. So I'm extremely excited to see this. Thank you for the work you're doing, and I'm happy to assist if I can in some way.
Representative McCabe.
Representative McCabe, District 4, I'm so excited about the work that you're doing. High tide rises all boats, and so a community that is age-friendly is also youth-friendly, intergenerational, it's everything. So really excited. Curious if you have reached out to the Age Well Collaborative and Alyssa Norwood here in Connecticut. I asked because I was skimming the livability data, and some of it is actually wrong. Like, it says that we don't have for example, state policy on ADUs, and we do. And I imagine, I know you said you just saw this, so I have a feeling that when you start digging into it, you'll see that there are probably better data measures that we can be doing, and would love to see more of an understanding of our housing inventory, our transportation routes, all of that, which I'm sure eventually you'll get to, hopefully with your university partners. But I'd love to know if AgeWell has a Connecticut-specific designation, data collection approach, because I imagine they have their finger more on the pulse of what it is here. Not to say that this isn't also really valuable, but I imagine that we might in fact see an even better outcome, and they would provide some guidance.
Specifically talking to Alyssa Norwell, right, Norwood. We have not spoken to her yet, although Brenda is part of the Connecticut Association of Senior Center Personnel, and AgeWell is on that. So those conversations do come up. We haven't specifically spoken with her but that's a good thing to follow up on. Yeah.
Representative Wolk.
Thank you, Madam Moderator. Jay Wolk, District 5. I'll be quick. I don't have really a question, but I have a compliment for you, Julie, who I have to tell you that all the work that you've done for this town with the senior center has been nothing more than just excellent. I mean, really. I mean, you deserve a round of applause for everything that you've done, especially in our community at Stratfield also. I mean, we've known each other for so long, basically. And then to Ms. Steele, I have to tell you that, we go back to when you were PTA president and you advocated for those bathrooms at Jennings School, and somebody asked if they were ADA coded. remember that line. And I can see that what you do for our community is in your family, being that Jeff's up here with us. So I want to thank you also. I don't know you, sir, but I want to thank you everything for what you're doing also. So thanks.
Representative Georgiadis.
Drew Georgiadis, District 9. Thank you guys very much for coming. I just had a question. The 1,000 people that responded to the survey you did and AARP, do they look at people who are year-round residents, live the majority of time in town? Obviously, in a town like Greenwich, people would be able to afford 2 homes. Even if they don't live 6 months out of state, they could live 4 or 5 months out of state. So I'm just wondering how that impacts, even in Portland, Maine. Do people stay there in the summer and then escape the snow? And I wasn't sure how that would impact it's a issue for like a highly, like a wealthier town, and how we would sort of balance to make sure we support the people and the seniors, older people that are here 12 months a year, can't afford the second home, and the type of things that they need.
So on the survey, in your backup material, there's a one-page summary. That's a summary of the survey results. It gives a quick analysis of kind of the results of the survey. We didn't get into as many questions as we would like, because we started off with 150 questions and you never get a response. So we narrowed down the questions to 42 questions. I don't believe any of the questions ask the question of how many months of year do you live here in Fairfield, to try and discern that. There's probably ways to take our survey results and find out how many people have multiple properties in different locales, and calculate that or estimate that from it, but I don't believe that we've done that. Just on the survey, though, home suitability and affordability were the major concerns that came out in the survey. The key factors involving people's motivation for moving were looking for a different house size. 43% of the people that responded on that topic needed a different house size. I guess what they had was either too big or too small. I don't remember what it was. A less costly lifestyle, with 42% of the people that worried about that. So affordability, people looking for a less costly lifestyle, indicates to us that affordability continues to be a challenge here in Fairfield. And then a home that enables independent living. So accommodations that will allow people to remain in their house as they age, things like first floor master bedrooms, bathroom safety types of things, were a variety of the topics that kind of came up from some of the survey questions. But in your materials, there's a one-page narrative that gives some background on survey information.
No, I appreciate that, but affordability could also be so they could afford 2 homes. So I think it's important to parse that out, because in my neighborhood, in the last 33 years, things have changed a lot, and a lot of the houses that would be affordable for a senior who lives here 12 months a year, or a senior that lives here part-time, have been torn down. So I don't know if AARP even looks at that. So I just wanted to throw that out as something to think about, so that we can focus on the real need at hand. Thank you.
So as we continue to do work in each one of the domains, we've talked about, as part of the team working on it, to do follow-up mini surveys on certain topics, to try and explore topics such as that, or other things in transportation or in social engagement, whatever. So we recognize that the 42 question survey that we did was a good initial start. It's kind of a requirement for AARP to show you're being diligent in your program. But we recognize that the work doesn't end with that 42 question survey. There's supplemental digging and mini surveys that likely, and also to ask those types of questions in listening sessions when we engage with the community, to try and get further information on topics like that.
Representative Ludwig-Zach.
Thank you. Christine Ludwig-Zach, District 8. John, that was a wonderful comprehensive summary of the initiative. Thank you so much. And just wanted to thank Julie and Brenda for all your hard work. I've been helping out with the committee over the last several months, and I'm thrilled to be part of this initiative. I think it's so necessary in our community, especially in the coming years as we see more people looking to age in place, not only in their community, but in their homes. And I think this will be a great opportunity to be able to seek out ways that we can make that happen, and again, help residents across all ages. So very excited to see where this initiative will go. So thank you again for your work, guys.
And thank you for your participation.
Representative Shea.
Thank you. Chris Shea from District 2. This is a very comprehensive PowerPoint presentation that you presented to us. Thank you so much for your effort. I wondered, it's been brought up already, but I don't really see anything in here about affordability. And it would seem to me that that should be like top front and center on one of these slides, and I couldn't find anything about that. So I'm wondering, in that 50 score that we've achieved, is part of that due to the fact that maybe we're less affordable than perhaps Portland, Maine?
I don't know the answer to that. That affordability is, I believe, from 2015. It's hard to pull out affordability in the domains that we're doing. It's part of everything. It's housing, it's transportation, it's social engagement. So the short answer is, we all hope that that we can make some progress on affordability in Fairfield. Right now, all we can do is identify that it's, which areas are not and how we can come up with ideas to improve it. So I wish there was a better answer than that. But as far as the livability, we don't know, but we're now going to look into it and find out, how, compared especially to a Portland, Maine, which is now going to be our gold standard, what they're doing that we're not doing. So to be, we'll get you information.
Thank you. And if I could, just another follow-up. I was wondering if there's like a mission statement for this, because I love mission statements where it's just like a quick paragraph of really what the objective of this program is. I don't see that anywhere. I see a lot of information, but I'd like one concise statement about what it is you're trying to achieve.
We have a webpage. It's, if you go to the Human Services website on the navigation bar, you'll see age friendly, and it has information there. Also, Fairfield Senior Advocates has a page on it. So we can send you something. We're happy to do that, the paragraph, but we do have a much briefer explanation.
Thank you. And just one more quick item. So it looks like this was pretty much put together by AARP. From all the logos I'm seeing on it. And I'm wondering, and also I guess you mentioned the World Health Organization is involved in this as well. Neither one of those two are government agencies, right? They're outside groups. Is there a government agency that also is involved in this sort of age-friendly product that is you're kind of working in concert with, like federal government or state government?
No. Nope, it's ARP is doing the American version of it for the WHO, but no, it's not a government program.
So the WHO did a study of cities and communities around the world, and they have a very comprehensive report. AARP recognized many of the beneficial attributes that were studied in that report and the recommendations they had, and developed their framework for age-friendly. We're following their approach, because they award the designation, so we try and model ourselves against the approach that AARP has advocated. All the work that we've done to date is really ours, in that we have taken the AARP approach, looked at other towns and communities, but customized what they've accomplished for what Fairfield's needs and requirements are. So we've taken their approach, but we're actually making it real for our community by having the involvement of people from all over the community in the program. On the topic of affordability, affordability came out in the survey results as a key challenge. I recognize that. It is a component of the livability index. It is a component, although a less pronounced aspect of the age-friendly initiative. But one thing that I query myself on is maybe the AARP livability people don't know the things we have in place to help our community be more affordable. Things like senior and disabled tax relief, which is a big affordability help. Having veterans the opportunity to participate in that. The health department resources we apply, the fact that we have a senior center with a wide variety of programs and initiatives are all things that make our community more affordable, because a lot of those programs are subsidized or less costly than it might be in other places, meals, senior transportation, a variety of things. So we have a lot of affordability things going for us. That does not mean that it automatically makes us an extremely affordable community. Proximity to major urban centers drives costs. And we have the benefits of that and the challenges of that. And that filters through to housing, it filters through to social engagement, filters through to a variety of things. On the point of major government entities involved in it, the Surgeon General of the United States just relatively recently issued an 80-plus page report on the topic of social isolation, which is a key component of the domain that Brenda is working on, related to ensuring that we're cognizant of that as a community and people feeling isolated and being separated and being, undermined in some fashion. So we're trying to work in the guidance from the major government agencies as well as the quasi-government entities like WHO and AARP.
Thank you.
Representative Donnie?
Hi, Nancy Donnie, District 6. Thank you very much. And my question is, you said you sent the survey to 1,000 people. How was that determined? How was it determined who would receive the survey?
We didn't send it. It was more of a voluntary thing where we had a number of efforts in outreach. We did public notices, we did an announcement, we had people camped out at each of the different libraries at different points in time. We were doing an entirely electronic survey. We didn't do a paper survey where we mailed it out and have it wind up in the trash and everything. We did a voluntary survey response. We publicized it as widely as we could, and we had people respond, and we provided them with the capability of responding. We actually went out to 2 different senior centers and sat with seniors that live at those facilities and had that help them respond to the survey in the whatever means we could, but we didn't do an open mailer and send it out. That would be very costly, very difficult to manage, very difficult to compile.
I guess my concern is with the fact that isolation is a problem. I'm not sure how you would get those people at the senior centers if they're not going out now. And the same thing to the transportation results in your survey. I question the validity long overall because of the people who aren't driving weren't getting the surveyed.
So the senior centers were actually the senior housing sites. So we went to the senior housing sites here in town, and it was 1,000 people that took the survey. It was 1,000 people, so it wasn't distributed to 1,000 people. It was 1,000 people took the survey from all the various opportunities we gave for people to take the survey.
And I guess how many is the population? So we got 1,000, but how many people are actually qualified for the survey?
Well, really anyone in town.
We tried to target the adult community. We did not go into the schools. We did not try and gather feedback. We were really looking for seniors and family members that have seniors in their household. That's really what we targeted. and it was 1,000 completed surveys. So a lot of times you do a survey, you get people half done, and you count that as completed. No, we had 1,042 question completed surveys, which the people from the Fairfield University Center for Social Impact were very, very complimentary and impressed with accomplishing that in a non-paid, non-required type of survey. They thought that was a good, rich population to be able to use for the work that we're doing.
Any more questions? Representative Rock.
Yeah, I just have one follow-up. I did a comparison between Portland, Maine, because it's come up a couple of times here after I said it, and our own town. And one of the reasons why we actually have a lower score is because we do not have a policy in place to create age-friendly communities. So they do, and they score better than us. It's not all the factors, but is one of the factors that they score better than us is because they do have a policy in place. So I just wanted to bring that up.
A, thank you, and B, we now have that policy, so maybe we should go back to them and see if that beneficially changes our score. But that's what we should do across a number of different areas.
Thank you. Any more questions? Thank you so much. Oh,
Sure, I can mention one thing. So we're on the agenda for the RTM meeting, but we just figured this was what we were doing.
you are good to go.
Excellent.
Thank you so much. It was a really comprehensive presentation, and as Representative McCabe said, that ultimately only benefits the entire community. So we really appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Great job.
Next up, we have an appointment to the Employees Retirement Board. Caroline Crissa, if you are here, oh, there you are. So welcome. If you could just introduce yourself and give us a little information about your background and why you would like to be part of this board. And you have to press down on the button the whole time.
Okay, and hold it. All right, thank you. Good evening, all. Caroline Crissa. I'd just like to take a couple minutes to just introduce myself. I have been a resident and a homeowner in the town of Fairfield for the last 30 years. I've raised 2 grown children here in Fairfield. They attended the Fairfield Public Schools, Sherman, Tomlinson, and Ludlow High School, and one even graduated from Fairfield University. For the last 20 years, I have been working in the financial services sector. I'm admitted to the bar as a practicing lawyer in the states of Connecticut and New York. Currently, I am the director and managing counsel with the Bank of New York Mellon, which is a global bank. I am a line of business lawyer with primary responsibility for the U.S. alternatives segment of the business. I manage a team of paralegals as well. For a decade prior to being with BNY Mellon, I worked in-house at a registered investment advisor. I've had the privilege over my career to work with both public and private pension plans. In that work, I'm familiar with the laws, the rules, the regulations, and the constraints that are imposed on pension plans in connection with their investments. I started my career in public service. I was an assistant corporation counsel with the New York City Law Department. I did a lot of urban renewal litigation. And I just hope to use my experience and my skills that I've gained over these years for the benefit of the employee board and for the town of Connecticut.
Thank you so much. Any questions? Representative Carson.
Hi, Laura Carson, District 4. You seem very qualified to be doing this, and we really appreciate you stepping up. I just have one question. On the form, it says you're a Democrat, but on our agenda, it says you're a Republican.
There was a typo, I believe, in the first packet that went out. I am a Democrat.
You're a Democrat. Okay, I just wanted to clarify, make sure we have the right balance. Thank you.
Representative Kuhn.
John Kuhn, District 7. Taking a look at your background, thank you for offering to serve, because I think you're actually a really good fit for the other, or complement to the other people who are on the board with your experience in the legal aspect, and particularly in the alternative space and fund formation and that sort of thing. I think that's going to be a good complement to those who are more investment professionals.
Anything else? All right, thank you so much. No need for you to come back next week. Thank you. Next up, we have Mark Barnhart talking about the Arts and Cultural District.
Good evening, Mark Barnhart, Director of Community Economic Development for the town. I'm here on behalf of the Chairman of the Fairfield Arts Commission, Charlie McDonald, who couldn't make it this evening due to travel. Here to present on the Commission's behalf a request to approve a resolution that would establish and seek state recognition for a cultural district in downtown Fairfield. As many of you know, there's Connecticut state statutes that allow communities to establish cultural districts. So the state defines a cultural district as a compact, walkable area that serves as a center for artistic and cultural expression, represents a place where community members congregate. And the commission, after doing quite a bit of research and looking at our inventory of arts and cultural assets, believes that the proposed district boundaries do meet this definition. This is part of a lengthy process. It does require the commission, having already done an inventory of our assets here in town, has met with a number of individuals, both within the community as well as others, including the Cultural Alliance, which was our designated regional service organization. Is now proposing to move forward with this. From this point, there still is a number of steps that would need to be taken, including a visit by the State Office of the Arts that would then meet with the town to review our application once we're in a position to submit that. Overall, what we're looking to do is hopefully market the community as an arts supportive community. We hope that this designation will allow us to promote all of our many vibrant arts and cultural attractions here in town, and perhaps also at some point, attract additional investment in support of the arts and cultural activities. I'm happy to answer any questions. The resolution would, in addition to establish a cultural district along the lines as we discussed, also designate the Arts Commission as the Cultural District Commission, and would allow them to then pursue grant funding should those avenues open up. So again, happy to take questions at this time.
Thank you. Representative Wackerman.
Karen Wackerman, District 9. Hey, Mark. I really just want to applaud you and the Arts Commission, how much you've gotten done. And the Arts Commission just seems so vibrant and energetic and very excited about the whole project, not just the cultural district. And it's just such an asset for Fairfield. So thank you for supporting that and making that happen.
Thank you. I should also mention that the Arts Commission will hold its second or third arts mixer this Friday at the Quick Center for the Arts. We're doing these informal networking events to allow for artists and creatives and other folks that are interested in the arts to meet and engage with one another. So we're having that event at the Quick Center, followed by an exhibition opening and reception. So all of you are more than welcome to join us at 4 o'clock. Thank you.
Representative Steele.
And Jeff Steele, District 3. Thanks, Mark. And I know when this first came out, I was certainly a supporter of, or one of the initial supporters of doing this and forming the commission, and then assessing whether we look to make Fairfield, give it a cultural arts district designation. And I think it's a great thing. Like the prior discussion about age friendly. I mean, these are things that bring people to town, that promote the town, which is only good for every aspect of living here. My only question is, I know there was when we initially talked about this a year ago or so, you just wanted to make sure there wasn't any sort of liability or requirement that could come down that we would have to meet or some sort of obligation. Was there anything that this designation sort of obligates us to do that could be a liability of any sort?
In reviewing both the statute and our experience talking to other communities that have gone through this, I haven't been able to determine any obligation. It's really a voluntary, and as you said, it's more about marketing the community and the arts and cultural venues and artists within the community.
Great. Well, we have essentially an arts center, so why not designate it as a cultural district? So that's great.
Representative Shea.
Thank you, Chris Shea, District 2. So would this be similar to like the Historic District Commission, where there'd be a town body that would kind of oversee the district and discuss whether its boundaries would be contained, or is it eligible to change boundaries? And and also, would there be costs associated with this?
I don't know that the Historic District Commission would be an apt comparison. It's not, doesn't have the same regulatory heft or role that a Historic District Commission would have. It's more about the commission oversees the district in the sense that it's there to help coordinate marketing and other promotional activities and support artists and creatives, not just those located within the district, but elsewhere in town. So it's really about acting as a coordinating role for our arts and cultural programming throughout the community.
And are there costs associated with this?
There would be costs associated with programs that might come out of this at some point, but those would be independent of anything related to the district itself. I'm sure that the commission, if Chairman McDonald were here today or tonight, he would be among those asking for some additional financial support to further the commission's goals, but that is separate and apart from the actual cultural district itself, which is more of a planning initiative and doesn't really have a financial impact that I can see.
Thank you.
Representative McCabe.
Michelle McCabe, District 4. Very excited to be voting in favor of this resolution. The cultural districts are wonderful, seeing them at work in other parts of the state. And what's great about them too is they are a wonderful tie-in to all of our local small businesses in the downtown. The benefits extend far beyond just the arts and culture institutions. So Fairfield will benefit enormously, not to mention the fact it deserves to have designation because we have so many great things. So very excited, and also believe that whatever investment ends up being made through the cultural district is something that will have economic returns far beyond whatever it is that we invest in it, as well as quality of life returns. So very excited, and congratulations to you and to the Arts Commission for getting this off the ground. It's a hard process, so yes, appreciate it.
Thank you. Any other questions? All right. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
Next, we have Megan Sloan and Emmeline Harrigan from MetroCog.
Good evening. I'm Megan Sloan. I'm the Planning Director at the Connecticut Metropolitan Council of Governments.
I'm Emmeline Harrigan. I'm actually the Assistant Planning Director for the Town of Fairfield in the Plan and Zoning Department, and I'm also the Floodplain Administrator for the Town of Fairfield.
Okay, and we're here tonight to discuss the 2024 Multi-Jurisdictional Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan. Everybody should have a link to that in the staff report that we put together for you. So the primary goal of the hazard mitigation plan is to reduce the loss of life, personal injury, and damage to property, infrastructure, and natural, cultural, and economic resources from natural disasters. The MetroCog really led this process, but this was a full partnership between the town of Fairfield as well as our other member municipalities. The departments that we worked most closely with in Fairfield were the Town Plan and Zoning Department, Engineering, as well as the Flood and Erosion Control Board. And that was really to identify actions and strategies to reduce vulnerability to a range of natural hazards. The town last approved this plan in 2019, and FEMA requires an up-to-date plan every 5 years. So this is actually the fourth edition of the Natural Hazard Mitigation Plan. And through adoption of the plan, the town will be eligible for certain types of FEMA funding. Emmeline is an expert, as well as continued participation in FEMA's Community Rating System program, which currently provides a 10% discount to certain types of flood insurance policyholders. So in addition to following some of the new FEMA requirements for the plan, such as consideration of climate change, and for each hazard, and how that exacerbates the impact of a hazard. We conducted a pretty robust public engagement process. This included a public meeting in the town at the beginning of the planning process and then one at the end. We also had a survey open for several months. Region-wide, we had 200 responses, thus, how impressive it was for the age-friendly Fairfield to get 1,000 responses. I definitely understand issues with length and everything now after seeing the how that dropped off. So we also had an opportunity for public comment, and I just need to give a shout out to the working with the town staff on this, as well as the Flood and Erosion Control Board. I think the plan became stronger because of that input and work with them. And I can answer any questions.
Thank you. Really? It looks like you already answered all of them. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, up next, it looks like we've got Bill Hurley and David Becker talking about the East Trunk Wetlands Crossing.
Right. Thank you. So on the East Trunk, the original proposal had come in through several different rounds of approvals, previously through the WPCA and then also the town boards. Some of the amounts actually had been bonded out. This was all before it actually had been bidded out. It also was originally proposed to be done for these portions in 2 different phases. So it came through as the trunk line, the main section, and also a wetlands crossing piece. There's also several rounds of grants that were obtained, and all the approvals for those were basically part of the original sets of approvals that had been put in. So what we have here is now a project that has officially been bid out, received 2 bids. Both bids were significantly larger than the amounts that had been forecast. This is essentially getting ready to accept the low bid and then add numerous levels of contingency on top of this, because even with the bids, from a reliability perspective, you're still not even out of 10 because a lot of this is literally under the ground. So that's where a lot of the overrun issues already stem from. So trying to make sure that we don't have to come back another time. Additionally, this combines it into one big project. If you look through, there's a resolution and there's a supplemental resolution. So some of this restates and actually eventually merges this into one project. One of the issues that we started to deal with, even just early on before we've even accepted this bid, was starting to allocate between two projects. We actually had in Munis, our accounting software, two different projects, trying to parse it out, and it was already becoming a bit confusing. So the idea is to just merge this, similar as you've sort of heard us talk about with Rooster River as an example. Just, we can talk a little bit in phases, but stop talking phases, start talking, this is one big project. So the original plan was for this to have the $3 million grant, the $750,000 grant, and then $13.5 million in bonded funds from the WPCA, and they were going to cover the entire amount of that. The new plan that's before you tonight, that's passed through the other boards and has passed through the WPCA, is to have the overrun portion be covered, which essentially nets out to 50-50 between the town and the WPCA. So it would be a $30.75 million project. It would therefore have a $27 million net actual bondable cost. 13.5 of it has already been approved by the WPCA. They would continue to pay that portion, and then the 13.5 an additional million would be paid by the town. So there's been a lot of discussion over the last, I would say, 10 to 15 years about the town and the WPCA and who should pay and when and how much. The reality is almost everything has been of late has now that we're finally kicking off all of this spending, has been borne by the WPCA. Their plant improvements earlier this year of $18 million, the $4.5 million in I&I from bonding, and some other capital projects have really largely been on the WPCA. The 13.5 for the East Trunk that was already approved through the WPCA. There's definitely some runway left in their capacity, but at some stage the town is forecast to have to pick up some portion. So there's a monetary debate, there's a philosophical debate, and it seemed like, at least in this particular instance, the East Trunk line is largely going to service the east end of town's massive buildup, quite frankly, Metro Center being a leading cause and future piece, but there's certainly a lot of development in that area. And one thought process here is, absent a settling of the philosophical, formulaic, or other monetary type of approaches, that splitting this 50-50 at this time is a reasonable step, in that the town side of the house is going to get a lot of permit dollars and a lot of tax dollars and a lot of economic growth, and it'd be a pretty significant haul for the WPCA to also take in one shot right now, and that this is going to be over the next couple of years it'll all be spent. A lot of their other projects at least will take a few years. So if we really hit them with another 13.5 or something significant, it would probably shock the rates, which is something we're really trying not to do. So on the town side, it certainly is some element of a hit in the, and I know the Capital Summit's coming up. It certainly is a hit, but we believe that we can build this in over the next few years and smooth it a little bit and adjust some other projects to make it happen. We did get one final note here, is that we did get the low bidder to extend it by a month. So there's a question about, taking a little bit longer. We've already sort of taken this longer to not have to try to do this during the summer, and to really sort of, move it through the boards at an even pace here. That's sort of the a little bit of the history, and the monetary piece.
Just in the interest of time, Bill Hurley, Engineering Manager. I just want to remind people that the East Trunk Sewer handles 2/3 of the town's sewer flows that go to the treatment plant. The sewer was originally constructed in 1947, so it's kind of served its aged life there. And there's the existing pipe has some sags and joints, and we're trying to eliminate and reduce inflow and infiltration, which will help reduce flows to the plant. And as David had mentioned before, we're right now there's a 33-inch pipe. We're doing a 36-inch pipe, which will increase the capacity to allow for development.
Thank you. Questions? Representative Kuhn?
John Kuhn, District 7. Just on the split, the WPCA / town split, are the WPCA's financials consolidated into the town's financials, or is there some way I can look at those separately?
On the ACFR, they're combined. I mean, they're technically a part of the town. I know a lot of authorities are not, but they are. As far as the budget, it's at the tail end of the budget book, and you can look at the budget there.
That's the budget, but is there a way to look at is there like a footnote on the financials that breaks it out like a segment reporting kind of thing?
I can pull some of the pages and send
I'll
it.
look.
Ask. I mean, it's,
Okay, no, it's easy enough for me to look. I didn't know.
Yeah,
if it was
there
a
are
simple answer.
some
Okay.
breakouts, even when we do the bonding, technically if they carry it, there are portions of it that are separated, but ultimately it rides off the town's EIN, so. Does that
Okay.
make sense? It's gonna be yes and no. I mean, there are some portions that are separated out, yes.
Okay, thanks.
Representative Shea?
Thanks for your presentation. Two comments. First one is, it's concerning that there were only 2 bids for a project of this scope and magnitude. I mean, there aren't other contractors capable of providing a proposal for this project?
I mean, yeah, somewhat, except for the fact that where you've experienced in numerous areas, not a lot of bidders, in part, all the infrastructure dollars. So it depends on the project, different aspects of it, the timing, and, it was disappointing to only receive 2 bids, but not a massive shock, at this time. I mean, hopefully that stabilizes, but it hasn't.
How does this compare to the, maybe the cost analysis that you had going into the project? Is it how far over budget was the actual low bid?
So the approvals were roughly, yeah, a little bit under 20 million. The bid came in at 24.9, and then we added several contingencies to move it up into the 30 range, trying to avoid coming back, because even as you see, the reliability score, even with the bid, is an 8 out of 10, because you still don't know everything until you get underground, so we didn't want to necessarily come back. Obviously, if we don't spend the full amount, then it doesn't actually get bonded. We'll bond, portions of the project have already actually been bonded, plus you have the grant amounts, and then we will bond other portions of it, and then we'll ban portions of it so that we can, if we don't actually spend it, we don't necessarily have to long-term bond it. So there's a few pieces here.
Thank you. Yeah, I'm still trying to understand it. I have to admit I don't understand it. But I do.
Yeah, I'll just add that I believe it was 6 or 8 months ago, we did a smaller section of the project and bid, and we had one or two bidders on it. I mean, this is like the third go-around in trying to get that. The complexity of this project, just to let you know that, included in this amount is also special inspections by 4 different firms, because it involves the Metro Center cap, it involves tidal wetlands, It involves Army Corps of Engineers and Connecticut DEP permits. And it involves, obviously, sanitary specialties, bypassing that 2/3 flow, which is a huge item, and dewatering. So all those really played a factor into the pricing.
And then I noted here that you say the town shall be responsible for a maximum amount of $13,500,000. But that doesn't really add up because it's actually going to be over 30,000 and we're supposed to be splitting this with the WPCA. So I'm confused. That's on,
You've got to take the grants out. So 30,750,000. There's a $750,000 grant, then there's a 3 million, now you're at 27, then you split it in half.
and the third.
Can you say that again, David, please?
And the $13,500,000 is, including the contingency that you built into this?
Correct. So with the contingencies, right, so the bid, so the original amounts, yeah, don't have it right in front of us, but it was roughly called 20 million. Bids came in at 24.9. We added contingencies that brought it up to, it was essentially just under it was 30.67. So we rounded up based, the number's simple here and within the contingencies, right? So we ended up at 30,750,000. That's before you today. There's a grant for 750,000, and then there's a grant for 3 million, which leaves 27 million to be bonded. So we would split that in half, and that's if you hit the full amount. So obviously, so if the two grant, let's throw a scenario that at the end of the day, you take the 2 grants off of it, and by the time we're done, we only need to bond, $25 million, then we would split it half and half between each. It's essentially an agreement to split it in half.
Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Steele.
Jeff Steele, District 3. Just to follow up, thank you for doing that, David. So when it was originally bonded for 20 and then you added the contingency, the additional contingency above the 24.9, because I know that was the bid, that's an extra almost $6 million of contingency. What prompted that massive amount of additional funding that you hadn't thought about when we got the original $20 million bond? Just kind of walk me through that. That's like, oh yeah, we need another 6 million on top of that. How did that happen?
So 24.9 million, we added a 15% contingency factor at 28.67 at that stage. And then we added 2 million due to inspections that we believe we may end up having additional costs on. And
So the 20 million didn't have the contingency and the inspection costs originally?
it had a smaller contingency, but this was specifically us asking, me literally saying that number is a low bid number on a project with a reliability score of 8, and we're not going back to the boards again if we can help it. So let's move these numbers, move these numbers up into a territory that we are comfortable knowing that if we do not ultimately spend those, we don't bond them, and but we're not back here mid-project trying to. If it was a 10 out of 10 reliability, then we might not have this discussion. But with an 8 out of 10 and with a project that's already gone over, leaving that many unknowns even when they did it, it seemed like a prudent step to be overly cautious in the amounts that we're asking for.
Okay.
So I know that's not necessarily been the norm, but I think it's something that, and we said this was the Board of Finance, you're going to find when you walk through the capital, the waterfall presentation next week, that a lot of numbers have much more aggressive, contingency and escalation numbers. I would much rather, I think we all in the administration would much rather be on the side of erring on caution than getting caught on the backside of it with, and then basically.
I would agree
along
with that,
schedule.
because, I mean, obviously, nobody wants to come back and throw in another $4 or $5, $6 million that, whether it was done earlier, maybe the shock and awe of it is greater as we put in the money in the second round. But yeah, siding on the erring on the side of caution would make more sense. And just lastly, maybe we'll get to this, and maybe you've already addressed it, but item 8, what was the difference between 7 and 8 again? They seem like the exact same thing other than the supplement resolution. Did you already address that?
We're talking the supplemental versus the
Yeah.
main resolution.
Yeah.
Yeah, this is to some degree, it's cleanup language because you actually, there were multiple resolutions that had already been approved plus bonding. So I defer to bond counsel on their reasoning, but there's MOU changes, a supplemental resolution and a main resolution that essentially get us to the point of codifying sort of restating what had already occurred and then what we're actually doing now. So, yeah.
Yeah, I didn't get any of that, but.
If you like a slightly better.
Probably trust you on that?
Yeah. As I trust Pullman on that as well, so. And I just, if I could, page 131, in the financials has the WPCA's, break it down. The latest version of the financials are through June 30th. They're in the process of doing the audit financials now for this through June 30th of 24. So the most recent that anyone can get is June 30th of 2023. There's a few different places with WPCA information, but if you go to page 131, and that can be found on the Finance Department's website, or if the moderator or anybody sends an email to me, I'll certainly send copies with details.
Got it. Thank you.
Thank you. Any Representative Garskoff?
Thank you, Josh Garskoff, District 5. I heard what you said about this project allowing for development on the east side of town. There are people in this town who are not connected to the sewers, and I wonder if you could speak a little bit to how we should tell them that they're going to help pay for this project. Can you speak to that a little bit more?
So obviously half of it is under the ratepayers. The other half of it, I mean, there's a substantial, it's not just the east side, there's a substantial portion of the town that is not on sewers, but they certainly benefit when we have commercial development, housing development, permitting fees, other things like that. We, as a town, if we want to have a vibrant community with, not just the east side, but downtown and other areas, obviously, see, in the area this runs right through, there's a large number of users that are stores and restaurants and other things that people go to. There's the schools and other elements that all benefit from this. So we have tried and will continue to be diligent about balancing how much, again, this is really the first big one to come through on the town side. We've really tried to put and continue to put as much towards the WPCA and into the ratepayers, as we can reasonably do. But there is a point where the rates would go through the roof if you bonded too much at any given time. And without necessarily, again, as I kind of said at the beginning, without getting into the philosophical, formulaic, sort of approach here, the town does benefit when this work, the town as a whole, that the town bodies, the residents, everybody who through the town does benefit when we have infrastructure that is appropriately built out. And that's something that we're, this is infrastructure that has been, it's been neglected for decades. I was on the boards and everyone was debating who was going to pay for it. In the middle of that, nobody ultimately could determine, a lot of us have a part in that. Nobody could ultimately determine what to do and sort of nobody put their foot down and said, okay, we're going to keep doing it. And now these projects have become much more expensive, and the needs are ever growing. But I would say, and I think that Bill had brought up a good point here. All of these are portions of addressing the I&I, which is actually addressing, if you take it and just flip kind of one positive here, is there was a plan sort of that was being thought up to put an exorbitant amount of money into the plant to upscale it. And actually, instead, we're now at a point where we're looking at the root cause. And if you had just done the plant and not some of these, right, this is also going to fix root cause issues and reduce necessarily a buildup in a plant. So there's a lot of pieces here, but it does benefit everybody.
Thank you. That's sort of like insulating before you upgrade your heating plan at your home or something like that, right? So, did I just hear you say that this obviates the need to upgrade the plant, delays the need, reduces the size of the upgrade? What did I just hear?
I would say it reduces the size. So right now, they've got an $18 million high priority list that they're working through. That's going to take them a few years. There's some other pieces that come behind it. But instead of massively scaling the plant up, if you address the I&I, the root cause, and while doing these upgrades, you're reducing the I&I within the line, so it goes hand in hand, and gives us some time to try to see what the impact is and what we ultimately actually would need on the plant side.
Thank you very much.
Representative Kuhn.
A quick question on the bonding related to this. Is that expected to be a 30-year tenor?
We usually do 20 years. So during the process, we may use bands, which are just 1 year rolling. We do them for a few years, and then they ultimately go out to 20-year bonds.
Right, bands now with the expectation of lower rates. Yeah.
Yeah, and also, it's an instrument for a couple of different reasons. Oddly, bands used to be lower. They've been higher recently. They used to cost almost nothing and be lower. Hopefully in the leveling out, our next issuance will maybe go the other way around. So it's nice. It's partially how we utilize, just to smooth our long-term debt as well as we balance that out each year. The other good piece is, while we know the biggest chunk of this is going to be long-term right from the get-go, and we're going to spend the money, as you get towards the end of the project, you may ban an amount of money and find out, say you ban $5 million and you only have $3 million that needs to close it out. Instead of long-term bonding, now being stuck with money that wasn't spent, you ultimately pay back 2 of it and long-term bond the remaining 3. We do that on a lot of projects, including, school construction and others. So kind of a mix. But long-term, it's 20. We don't go past 20. You could, but it's a pretty.
The differential is probably de minimis in terms of the rates anyway. So
Yeah.
I was just looking at what you cited on 131 and just trying to do a rough kind of debt service coverage, but I think we're okay. Just assuming the WPCA portion.
Yeah, and the WPCA hasn't bonded a lot. This last year was actually probably its biggest initial as we step up there. It will over time. We'll be allocating more in that direction as these projects start to get going.
And presumably the revenues will go up at the WPCA.
Yeah, and on that, I mean, presumably bringing more ratepayers on, that'll help. And they've tried to be as cautious as possible in their raising of the rates, even just to cover with the existing. So this year's was quite reasonable, and attempting to sort of slowly move that up. There's been a lot of discussion on this. I open up another can of worms, but there's a big discussion about, they do have a capital account that they've been stocking away. One of the things that we're looking at is not necessarily spending all of that towards these projects, but using it to help sort of smooth the bonding costs in to help stabilize the rates as they go up. So we use a little bit for projects. It also builds each year, and use some of it towards the debt service to kind of step that in over the next few years as it goes up. So, the eye here is towards, as is on the town side of the budgeting, but it's an eye towards stability. So you don't want to see, number one, you don't want to see it go up too much in any given year, but you also want it to be relatively predictable up and sort of just a steady, so same for them as is on the downside.
And then I don't know if I'm conflating a whole bunch of previous conversations and a whole bunch of different other meetings, but the bigger version of upsizing the plant, would that give us the ability to turn it into a profit center by taking, I know there are other towns that don't have the same kind of service capability and need to ship their goods elsewhere. Is that something that's in consideration?
I would generally say no.
I saw somebody
we-
behind you
Yeah.
shaking her head.
I think we want to get our house with this in order and build long-term. Yeah, she's nodding her head no, probably for good cause.
Okay,
and-
thanks, Christine.
Yeah. And even I say no, and I'm usually a fan of regional and all those other fun things, but yeah, we've got work to do. And I think we recently exciting, news on our end, but we now have a WPCA general manager. So over time, you'll see that individual. She'll come and probably present on some of these items, and she's still newer, so we're here. But the WPCA is ramping up, for the long haul to really situate the facility to, to function, optimally and to address all of these concerns and put it on a solid long range, focus, which I think will be, not, it's an interesting topic, but it's exciting times for it.
Yeah, we don't want any plumbing problems, so.
Big topic in the state of the town this year. So here we are, we're in business.
Thank you. Any more questions? Representative Rock.
Dave Rock, District 2. David, do you know off the top of your head what percentage of households or businesses in this town are using septic instead of the sewer plant?
I'd have to get you an answer from the WPCA. In general, the Greenfield Hill area is the septic area, and everybody else is served. Southport, the beach area, Stratfield. If I had to take a quick guess, just in trying to estimate, I'd say 80%. But if you want a better number than a guesstimate, I can get that for you.
All right, so let's say it's 20%. All of District 2, I would imagine, the district that I represent, just uses septic. And most of us use well as well. Not that this is part of the topic, but so we're kind of off the grid. But we are being asked, or will be asked, that our tax dollars are going to go ahead and pay for this. And I'm not just making a statement. I'm not trying to sway opinion or anything like that. But I'd be interested to see sort of a Venn diagram of the tax dollars of the people who don't use the sewer plant versus the folks who do use the sewer plant and what their tax burden is on average. Would you care to speculate what that might look like, those two overlays? Would it be disproportionate?
Yeah, the only thing I could say is what David had said before. There are some benefits, obviously, when it comes to the I&I and the sewer plant. But other towns where they have a lot more serious sanitary sewer overflows, they're called SSOs, well, then that starts affecting the beach where you have to close it down. It infects the environment. It infects, wetland quality, water quality, things like that. So there are some relatively minor improvements for everybody in town. That's all I can kind of say. It's asking for that. That's way over my head. In whatever diagram.
Yeah, I'm just I'm going to get questions from people in my district as to why we're paying for it. I think it's a reasonable question. I'm just trying to understand what my response would be. as their representative. Thank you.
Representative McCabe.
Michelle McCabe, District 4. I'll be really fast. I just wanted to say that I thought, Mr. Becker, you gave a great response earlier when it comes to that question. I want to, and to Representative Rock, I certainly appreciate the challenges of answering constituent questions, but I would just say and caution us, it's not a one-to-one ratio, first of all, because you would have to ask every resident who uses their septic and a well, how often they eat out, how often they go to the library, how often they go to the stores, how often they go to the beach, if their kids are in a school. So the math ends up getting really diluted. It's not just I pay tax dollar X and whatever, and that might help in mitigating some of those tough questions. You know, we all have to pay to make Fairfield great, even when it's not, you know, in our neighborhood per se. And certainly sewer is a good one, because I think all of us would be really bummed out if there was an issue with the sewer, even if it wasn't in our actual yard.
Representative Wackerman.
Karen Wackerman, District 9. I think also, Dave, it might be helpful to point out there are things like we all pay for schools, even though some people don't have kids in the schools, and the golf course building was done, and I don't golf. But I understand, I mean, this topic comes up with all of those expenditures, but that might help them understand.
Thank you. I just say we're, and I did say it earlier, I mean, we are very cognizant of it and have attempted to, and will continue to put as much towards the WPCA as possible. So this is a first, and it's not a frequent.
Thanks. Representative Britton.
Peter Britton, District 1. Is there any discussion with regard to the town looking at putting in sewer lines in my District 1, District 2, so that if we have to answer this question here, we're paying to upgrade this system for a system we're not using? I get it, everybody's point about schools and everything else. But look, this is a hard conversation because this is a very nice town and we don't have sewer, right? So it comes up in my area all the time. So I'm wondering if there is any discussion about actually taking this on in the areas, that don't have it.
So it has come up. I think it's come up when we were approving the plant. There was a question at one of the boards related to that as well. Not an off the table. There's a cost metric to pushing, further in that, there may be some areas over time, once we get a lot of other infrastructure in place to be able to do that. We're not necessarily in a position right now with the other items that we have. There may be some areas, at a future date where we're doing that. There's areas that it's gonna be very cost prohibitive to try to expand to. There may be some areas in the, on the periphery of the existing network where at a later date, that could be entertained. I think you gotta get, the plant's gotta get, it's not gonna be in the next couple of years because we have a lot of infrastructure that needs attention before we have problems with the existing facility and can even look at that. So it's not a no, but it's not a near term, most likely.
To just follow up, it's unfortunate that as this topic is being addressed, that we can't look at that as a broader perspective, right? And say, okay, in 3 to 5 years, whatever, we're going to pursue the project of finishing out this town for sewer lines. But I'm not hearing that, so.
I wouldn't characterize it as not hearing it at all. What I'm saying is if you expect it in 3 years, we're gonna push through, an extra mile in a certain, we're nowhere near that right now because we're trying to get to the point that we reduce the I&I, that we deal with some of these items in very pressing areas. We're in a position in certain areas that if we don't expand lines, we're actively we're being sued by developers. There's issues that we have to address very near term. And as you can see, they're very expensive items. But from a long range perspective, I think a town that has a network, that has areas that it can be expanded into, we should be absolutely looking at that. And I think that we will try to do that. And I think that that's part of, again, with now sort of adding to the, to the staff, the general manager, those are things that are going to be on, okay, well, what's your 20-year plan, as an example? That doesn't mean 20 years is when the line goes, but in the next 20 years, okay, at year 5, we're going to try to move into XYZ neighborhood. We need to really try to do that, and we need to quantify out that when we do that, we don't inadvertently cause another issue in a different area, but maybe once we've done some of the work, then it'll be able to handle that, and we can look at the metrics. In some areas, maybe, I have similar questions. The lines stop in certain areas, and I go, I don't understand why, if you just ran it down, there's all these other pieces, and it's not just the north end of town. It happens in certain areas on the south end of town as well. There's these weird pockets that seem like they're ripe for it at some stage. So,
Thank you. Anyone else? Representative Rock.
Yeah, just to follow up, I mean, I would hope, and I know we're not having this discussion today, but I would hope that sometime in the future, if we're going to take that 20% number don't currently have sewer,
search for more than just a
a cost of
destination.
$60 million came up to extend and cover all of Fairfield, that would not be deemed cost prohibitive. Because it's clearly not cost prohibitive for us right now to go bend the sewer plant, which we should be doing. I'm all for that. But, let's be clear. The people up north are paying for, something that they use a lot, but indirectly.
Oh, I'm going to actually request that we just kind of stay back onto the agenda item for next week. So if we have questions related to that agenda item, Representative Georgiadis.
I just want to follow up on Representative McCabe's comment. As someone who lives in the beach area, I want to say that property taxes are not directly proportional throughout the town. The beach area does pay disproportionately higher taxes. The rest of town also shoulders the burden. The areas of town that have sewer shoulders the burden of affordable housing, multi-home dwellings. So it all works out in the wash. We all contribute to the fabulous Fairfield. And as Representative McCabe said, you can't, and Representative Wackerman, you can't take it specific and drill down on one item and discuss one item without all the other benefits that people get throughout the town. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anybody have any related questions at this point on the East Trunk wetlands? Okay. Thank you. Bill, you might as well stay up there, get comfy, go for the tide gates.
Yeah, the next one is the tide gate system. We're asking for an increase, again, very similar to the other project where we had a bid opening and the bids were higher than what was anticipated. And they were really all over the map. It's very hard. We had 4 bids on this one at least, but one of them we had to disqualify. It was incomplete, and there were a couple of other issues with it. It's just why the cost goes up. It's hard to explain because even in the same items that we had, and this was discussed by David on the at the Board of Finance, mobilization. One contractor has it at 187,000. Another one has it at 350. Then there's another item where the concrete head wall, somebody has like 1.6 million versus 800,000, and they're just all over the map. It's one of the things that makes it very frustrating for us. We had the original bid was pre-COVID. We adjusted it for after COVID, and then it's still increased. We do have a contractor set to go pending approval, and at least it's a contractor we're familiar with. And, it's, if we don't do it, well, then there's other issues in terms of flooding, wetland restoration, all that. This is a pretty big project. There's going to be a total of 5 tide gates involved. It also involves relocating an old pony truss bridge, which is on the historic register. It also involves working only with the tide at certain times. There's a restriction due to a terrapin and an owl. And so every little thing just kept on adding the costs. We finally did get the approvals from Army Corps of Engineers and the Connecticut DEP. Of course, they have mitigation measures there. We have to create, I think if off the top of my head, it was like 12,000 square feet of wetland plantings. So just everything just kept on piling on, but we have the project ready to go and we hope for your approval.
Thank you. Any questions? All right, let's talk about Lower Wharf.
Hopefully this one's even easier. With the Lower Wharf, it was on the Capitol Waterfall. We did get approvals last year with the hopes that we were going to get what they call a SHIP grant. Unfortunately, we weren't quite able to get a SHIP grant, but in the same token, we thanks to our Connecticut legislature and the representatives here, we were able to obtain a Urban Act grant for the town of $1.06 million. And that combined with the original town share that we were going to provide will provide $1.2 million to do the Lower Wharf project, which consists of the original T section of the fishing pier and the wharf retaining walls that were damaged in the storm about 2 years ago.
Thank you. Any questions? All right. All right, we are moving on to David Becker, Chief McCarthy, and Assistant Chief Case. I hope I pronounced your name properly. For ARPA reallocation.
So I'll open it up and turn it over to the chiefs. And so there is one item that we're asking for under ARPA. It's coming out of the unallocated line, which had roughly 1.6 million as of the last reallocation. This leaves a balance, which you can find on the last page 5 of the ARPA schedule. It'll still leave a remaining balance of $1,081,378.59 after doing this. So there's still ARPA funds and we'll be coming back for that. Usually we come with revisions and some other adjustments. This, we're bringing just one item, and it's more that we were originally going to come forward in October, but there's a time sensitivity piece to this. So we work to get this on the schedules starting in end of August at the Board of Selectmen, then Board of Finance, and now here. We have other items coming again and starting in the next few weeks. The item here, we're looking for 562,000 and change, and this includes utilizing $425,000 based on the insurance, so funds that'll flow through our internal service fund and from our carrier Kerma, and it also adds includes from there $25,000 incidentals balance just for minor outfitting. They tried to put as much effort into this quote to be as true to what it'll be at time of delivery, but obviously there will be some small outfitting items, and I tried to project that as well so as to not affect future budgets. From a time frame perspective, if we place the order essentially on Tuesday morning, as soon as this is done, if it gets approved next Monday, they will begin building, as of current dates, they'll begin the fabrication for the hall next July, with a delivery anticipated of May of the following year, 2026. We have been now, this is our second season, and next season as well, we'd be anticipated to rent a boat that costs $5,000 a month right now. So it's in our interest to get to the point of not only having the right vessel on the water, but also to stop having to rent, because that's expensive and that's been hitting our risk fund. They can provide a little bit of history on what occurred with the previous craft, but the plan here was to build out something that will get the department, will last for a considerable amount of time and will be somewhat future resistant. The boat from before was from 2007, and it was the first year-round in-water craft that the department had. It was obtained at zero or roughly from another community, outfitting dollars. It really served our community well. But obviously the needs of the community and the place that the fire department is at now have changed since then. And so we're really trying to get it right with this. So turn it over next to the chief.
Yeah, and I'll be brief. As David said, we're in need of replacing our fireboat. February 2023, and the most severe weather event of that winter season, we had below zero temperatures for a day, caused some freezing in the drainage system off of the back of the boat, took on water and sank. We have spent considerable time investigating whether to rehab that boat, which was acquired from the city of Bridgeport when they got another grant-funded boat. And it has served us well, but it gave us the opportunity to evaluate our needs, the type of responses that the fire department is sent to, and what we need for resources for the fire department to affect our missions. And in that process, we determined that the metalcraft boat to be refurbed, to bring it to modern standards, would be close to the cost that we are proposing to replace it with. And it would be a much lesser boat, less functionality for the fire department missions. So we come to you with a request to replace the boat and offset the cost with the insurance receipts from KERMA, as well as ARPA funds to fill up the gap. And with that, I think that we can take questions, and certainly I want to commend Chief Case and his team for doing painstaking research and looking at 5 different major manufacturers, visiting fire departments that have these assets to evaluate one against the other to come up with this recommendation. So thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. Online, Representative Pistilli, I think you're signed in as Town of Fairfield, but pretty sure that's you that has a question.
Yeah, I'm sorry. It's from Senior and Disabled Tax Relief. When I sign into WebEx, it thinks that I'm Town of Fairfield, so I'm sorry. I apologize. Sharon Pistilli, District 5. So I just wanted to, Madam Moderator, through you, to Chief McCarthy. Hi, Chief. Sorry I'm not there in person, but nice to see you. How exactly did the boat sink again? And how would whatever happened to the boat determine what kind of boat we'd consider purchasing in the future, just so we don't have something like that happen again? And did it outlive its useful life since it was from 2007? So how are we taking that into account in how we make a decision for what we're going to purchase next time?
Good question. So in February 2023, we had a severe temperature event, below zero temperatures. The boat is moored at South Benson Marina. It faces south. There was a north wind driving the water towards the stern. There were a couple of scuppers that drain water out of the transom, and they froze open, allowing water infiltration, weighing down the back of the boat, causing it to sink. And it was a design flaw and it was the design that was used at the time that the boat was built. They don't use that design anymore to prevent that from happening. In 2007, this boat was bought by the city of Bridgeport. It was their first fireboat. They were brand new to the game, and when we acquired it in 2014, it was the boat that we got. It wasn't purpose-built for the Fairfield Fire Department or the missions we respond to. We have learned a lot in the past 10 years operating on Long Island Sound. We need a larger platform. We need two operational areas, one in the bow, one in the stern, to allow different functions to occur simultaneously, particularly when we have search and rescue operations with divers in the water. We need those two operating spaces to be available. So that is the reason why, or those are the primary reasons why we have come to the decision that a purpose-built boat for the Fairfield Fire Department's needs from a major manufacturer in fire rescue boats would be appropriate. And as David said, will fill our needs for the next, we plan for this boat to be operational with some renovations over time for the next 20, 25 years.
Great, thank you.
Any additional questions? All right. Next, we have.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thank you for coming. So next we have, I think, Chuck Abercrombie from the, talking about the Flood Prevention, Climate Resilience, and Erosion Control Board. Just a reminder to the body, this is the first time this is on the agenda, so it's not a voting item for this month, but Mr. Abercrombie is going to come talk to us about it.
Currently, the town charter establishes the Flood and Erosion Control Board and gives it the powers that are granted by state statute in its sections on Municipal Flood and Erosion Control Board. However, in 2021, the state enacted amendments to those sections, which included, among other things, changing the name of the Flood and Erosion Control Board to the Flood Prevention, Climate Resilience, and Erosion Control Board. The state statutes also authorize the board, our board, to have 7 members rather than the currently existing 5, and to name 3 alternates, which the board currently does not have. Third, the statute calls for an ordinance to be enacted by the RTM to codify the town's level of town's composition and powers of the board. Fairfield does not have such an ordinance. The resolution that was passed by the Board of Selectmen and the ordinance that's before you ultimately for voting would address all 3 issues, namely the name of the board, the number of members, and the ordinance itself, which grants the powers that the state has authorized. I should point out that if the ordinance passes, the board will continue to be subject to the state provisions that its projects will remain, quote, within the limits of appropriations from time to time made by the municipality. So we're not granting any particular additional powers to the board. What we are effectively doing is bringing the town into compliance with the state statutes. And I would add that the resolution which permits or starts the process of, in effect, revising what is in the town charter is, in fact, authorized by the town charter. And that's via the opinion of the town attorney. So, in effect, what we're asking is that the ordinance be enacted as it's proposed.
Thank you. Questions? Representative Georgiadis.
Drew Georgiadis, District 9. I just want to thank you. Chuck, I've known you for over 20 years, and you're always willing to give your time and energy and your knowledge as an attorney to help better the town. So I've enjoyed working with you in the past, and thank you for all the work you've done today.
Thank you. Representative Zazima.
Liz Zazima, District 4. Chuck, I also want to thank you so much, and Becky, for this ordinance and for the work that you're going to be undertaking. It's greatly appreciated. Thank you.
I think that's it. Thank you so much. Sorry, I had to wait for a while. All right, and last thing on our presentation agenda tonight is Representative Kuhn is going to give a presentation talking about a sense of the body resolution regarding community power. Yeah.
Seeing that it is 9:37 at night, and normally I'd be in my pajamas falling asleep to slow horses, I thought I would give the short version of this discussion. So we're going to start with sort of the proto-utilities of the 1920s in New York City, and we're going to walk our way through the regulatory regimes that lead us to today. Failing that, so community power. Community power has a few different names: community energy aggregation, community choice aggregation, municipal energy aggregation. Now, some of you I know were not part of kind of the beginning of this, where I got up here and I don't know, a couple of years ago in anger at the utility rate hikes. UI, I think, had raised the rates 100%. And I thought there ought to be something we could do. And so I formed this committee, the Committee on Energy Initiatives. And Peter Britton was the vice chair on that, and Michelle McCabe was part of that initial committee. And one of the things we learned about was this concept of community power. Now, what community power is, also called by the other names, is effectively a way for the town to act as the purchaser of utility generation services for all of the town ratepayers. So that would mean that no longer would you necessarily be getting your power by UI, who goes out into the market and buys whatever they buy, sort of a standard rate. Instead, there would be some broker on behalf of the town who would go out and purchase the generation services for you. Now, you can do that today individually. If you go to energizect.com, you can pick from a myriad of different providers. The difference here is that typically you would end up saving rates, you'd end up saving more money. Already the municipality does this for itself. So the town of Fairfield already goes out and purchases, I think they're using Constellation Energy, the last I knew, is their provider, but they save a lot of money by doing that. So this is a way that the town would be able to act as that purchaser for all of the ratepayers. However, there's an important thing that also has to happen. The state legislators have to enact legislation that allows the towns to do this. In deregulated environments, which we are one of 17, I believe, if the state enacts this legislation, then the towns can go off and act in this way and purchase for their townspeople. I don't know. Should I read the resolution, or I guess we do that next time?
I don't think you need to read the entire resolution.
Oh.
No,
Okay, no, that's
not
fine.
that it's not a good one. I'm
So,
sorry.
no,
It's just,
well, we can do it next
I
time.
think
and
everybody
I'll
has
just-
access to it.
I'll just open it up for questions.
Thank you. Representative Steele.
Thanks, John. Jeff Steele, District 3. I'm definitely in support of this. I have a couple of questions just on aspects here. I think the first is with community power, is the purchase from generators that are renewable energy only, or is it from all types of generators? Because there's things, go on.
It can, I purposefully wrote this very broadly because there are different flavors of community power. And part of what will dictate what happens in the town is, first off, what the state will allow the town to do.
True.
And after that, what the town decides to do. So there are places, I mean, right now, when your standard electricity bill, I believe you are purchasing 33% renewable, but even then, you're actually not getting renewable power. You're buying RECs, renewable energy certificates. So you can kind of, with those certificates, you can buy as much as you want. Buy. So it's hard to say what our flavor will be ultimately. My purpose here really is to show that Fairfield is a leader. We'd be the first town in the state to pass a resolution such as this. In 2020, there were a number of towns that looked to do something and it got shot down in the state legislature. I think now is a really good time, given the backdrop of all the utility issues, to revisit this.
It's a great time. I agree. I asked about the community power because there are things such as community solar, where you can have a solar system in place, and people say who live in apartment buildings who want to buy their power from a renewable source can buy from that generating community solar plant, whether it's in Fairfield or outside Fairfield, and they can then participate in the renewable energy purchase and themselves not buy from United Illuminating, but buy solar energy. And I think that all kind of plays into this whole thing. So you're right, we need enabling legislation first, and then we can figure out what that means for our community. Can things like solar or, other type of renewable energy plants be put in?
Yeah, and I looked at community solar recently. I don't think I saw that there was anything available in the state.
There's not.
So, we're in a bit of a pickle here in terms of renewables. We just don't have any really in the state. So we are kind of at the whim of other places, and we buy the RECs.
So the other question in terms of like the item, the 4 items here that you list, so when we say these are our asks, are they in coordination with other towns who might want to do this as well? In other words, are we kind of setting our own agenda of what we're asking for from the state? Because I think the state should do something, but are we trying to say, this is what we want the state to do versus just do something, like begin the process, put it in place? How specific do we want to get on what we're asking them?
I think this is a good menu of options that we should ask for. Do I think it's going to be the end? I don't know. Representative Lieber and myself had a discussion with our main power people who were looking at basically privatizing their utilities from Avangrid. And there may be, instead of doing something along these lines, maybe we should go back to the old style regime where the generation, the transmission, and the distribution are all done by one person and regulated in the way that, say, a state like Vermont is. There are studies that show that will actually give you lower rates.
And then I know, because one of the items here just says administer all energy efficiency funds paid by customers located within their jurisdictional boundaries, purposes of promoting, funding local energy efficiency programs. So would we, in the end, I know this is jumping way ahead, 'cause all we want them to first is put some enabling legislation in place, but are we thinking long-term that there would be a separate municipal department that would be an electrical purchasing department here in Fairfield, and I mean.
Well, I don't think we want to shut off the possibility. For example, if the community power state-enabled legislation allowed for, say, a county to aggregate its purchasing, you might want Fairfield to be the one who controls all that. So the idea, again, is to retain as much flexibility as we can. This is a non-binding resolution, but I think it's important to send a message to the state legislators. And I've spoken with a number of other towns who are aware of this resolution and have seen this resolution. And there's a possibility that they may follow us.
Last question. What is the interest level in Hartford that you know from Representative Leeper and others? Is there an appetite to do something like this? And do you see it now, happening now?
I won't put words in anybody's mouth, but I would not be surprised if something were to happen in January timetable. Maybe I'm ambitious. I think I would be fair to say that I believe the utilities will be on board with this. They don't care because they're just getting paid for the transmission and distribution. So wherever your power is generated, it's kind of irrelevant to them. I think that I've had enough discussions with people over some time in the legislature to guesstimate that there's going to be more people on board given all the volatility that's going on with utilities right now.
Representative Walk.
Thank you, Madam Moderator, and Jay Walk, District 5. First, John, I want to thank you for doing this. I don't know, some of our reps who weren't here back years ago, but just to bring back memories, what you're doing, I was the last person to bring a sense of the body and got the vote passed with Representative Tara Cook-Lippman's advocacy for GMO labeling. Our body passed that resolution for sense of the body 45-5. And the reason why I'm saying this is because what we did was to help the state legislature understand what GMO labeling is and to change the laws to have companies put labeling on their products. But is this something like you had in mind? Because the sense of the body isn't binding. It's not a binding law. It's just to make the state legislatures aware of what you're trying to do. And is this all part of that? And the other thing I was going to ask is, when you're talking about suppliers, you're talking about our suppliers for my home, I use North American Power. So you're talking about that. So we wouldn't need a supplier to bring it to us. What you're doing would alleviate that?
Well, let's be clear on definitions. By supplier, do you mean the generator of the power?
Yes, you have a choice that, UI sends us up, NAP does, other companies do. We're with NAP. I work for NAP, so I'm still with them. But
in terms of transmission and distribution, that would not change, nor would your billing.
Perfect, because I did so well that they pay for my supply for the rest of my life as a bonus. So I did so well. I think Representative Liz Esimer was part of that too.
I'd like to alter this resolution if possible and add some of Jay's backfill into this.
But I'll tell you, a sense of the body is a good thing. It really is. It worked for you, Representative Cook-Lippman, right? I mean, you didn't get what you really wanted, but they did okay for the most part, even though you were upset with me.
I think that's exactly right. I think that's the model, and I wish I'd put one and one together. I might have spent more time with her on the tactics of this, but that's essentially what I want to do, which is, send a signal to the legislators in the state, because this is just paper. It doesn't do anything. It can't do anything until they do something. But, I've spent a lot of time with the guy who was sort of the chief advocate the last go-round of this, and he's been advising me on it. And so I think that there's, if I can get his communities and my communities, if that's sort of 10, 15 to sort of start the ball rolling, if we need that to get the legislators up in Hartford, so be it.
That's great. You got my vote. Thanks.
Thank you. Representative Garskoff.
Thank you, Josh Garskoff, District 5. There's experts in the room. I'm not one of them, but my understanding is that one of the problems is that the electric utilities are raising the distribution rates. That's one of the things that's getting us. So this would not actually protect us from that at all, which is why maybe the other model, the Vermont model, might actually be beneficial. Do I have that right?
Maybe yes, maybe no. I think, so, right, so the Vermont model, the generation, the transmission, the distribution are all controlled and all by one entity, and they're all regulated as such. They still get their rate of return on those various aspects. What the community power would do is it would then leave UI and Eversource with its 11% guaranteed return on the transmission component and 9% guaranteed return on the distribution component. But you would have savings on the generation component. However, and again, there are different flavors of community power. Massachusetts, which was the first one to enact this in 1994, is probably the most restrictive. But there are much broader models like New Hampshire, which is the most recent state to enact it in 2023. And in a place like New Hampshire, I think you could do something like what Maine tried to do across the state, which is effectively municipalize your utility. And in that case, you would probably take over the transmission and distribution within your town boundaries, or maybe county, depending on how the legislation is written and how the towns want to do it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Representative Rock.
John, very powerful. Get the joke?
Boom, boom, hey.
Yeah, I think it's great. I use Constellation as well. I get my power from Georgia, and I pay 3 power bills. I pay for my home and for my 2 businesses, and so it really does work out. A lot of people just don't even know you can get your power from somewhere else. I think this is a great use of RTM's governance, and thank you for leading. This is something that people really want in this town, and really anybody who's touching UI or Eversource. Not that we touch Eversource, but it's a real issue for a lot of people. And
Ask the people who have the monopoles in the northern part of the town about Eversource.
who are those people? But thank you for leading. This is great. I applaud you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any more questions? Thank you so much for all your work on this.
But I miss Slow Horse.
So at this point, we're going to break off into committees. Please make sure if people have follow-up questions throughout the week to any items, to make sure to email both myself, CCing Moderator Spolier. She is out of pocket until, I think, very close to the meeting next week. And so if you email only her, you may not get an answer to your question yet.
Go for it.
Finance Committee is right here because there's 2 of us.
I'm dialing in though. Great job, Margaret.